Hey folks, Griffin Lucier here. I am here with a new look at Jund Midrange and Historic after the release of Strixhaven, and we're gonna take a look at this deck. It's very early on in the format, but it's a brand new format because of the Mystical Archives cards that were printed alongside the Strixhaven new set. Strixhaven itself, there's some good ones in there. But the Mystical Archives cards are really changing the format up. But we got some new stuff to talk about here. And like I said, this is this is Saturday the 17th, so the set's only been out for a couple of days. But so far, this is the list that I like of all the different cards that I've tried from the new set, and it seems to be working okay. It's also just like a Wild West kind of format right now, and who knows, what's going to happen when a kind of more defined metagame shakes out. Then we'll have more questions to answer. But as of right now, the deck's playing well. It's pretty smooth. Let's check out some of these new cards. First of all, Inquisition of Kozilek. It's a lot to say about Inquisition of Kozilek, but in reality, we kind of already had this effect with Thoughtseize. The difference is that Inquisition helps you keep your life total a little higher, makes it so that you get as many of that effect as you want, because we don't really, in this list specifically, we don't want to go over, say, 5 or 6 of those usually. Sometimes in Modern you play 7 total Thoughtseizes and Inquisitions. In Jund. In Death Shadow it's going to be different, but now we get to play basically as many of those as we want, and we get to split it up a little bit so that we're not Thoughtseizing a bunch of times and losing all of our life total. But Inquisition is significantly less powerful because a lot of the cards that you really want to take are 4 mana or higher. So something like Collected Company is really good. The new Mizzix's Mastery. A lot of cards that I wish we could take with Inquisition, but we can't, so we still got to play quite a few Thoughtseizes. Depending on what the format does, we might, increase the number of these, decrease, who knows. Abundant Harvest. This is a brand new card. It's not even legal in any other set yet because it's never been actually printed. It's so far been really good, and it kind of changes the whole dynamic of this. Not really the way it plays out, but just the way that we get to build the deck. But it's basically we get to play with Ponder or Preordain or whatever cantrip you want, and you just always get what you want. You either get action if you want action, or you get a land. The downside is, it's kind of a downside with Inquisition and Thoughtseize that if you draw Abundant Harvest late in the game, and you try to get a non-land spell, then you might run into grabbing a Thoughtseize or Inquisition that's kind of a blank because they don't have any cards in their hand or something, and that happens from time to time, but it's kind of rare, and it's also just way better than just drawing a random card. And with that, you get a ton of flexibility over your opening hands. This kind of effect is kind of deceptively a card advantage spell or effect, I guess, because you get to keep hands that you otherwise wouldn't. So this card plus 1 land looks like a pretty bad hand, but it's actually a 2-lander, and if you're on the draw or whatever, that's sometimes a very acceptable hand. So I really like Abundant Harvest so far. It has made this deck just run very smoothly. Never unhappy to draw it later on. and it's been really good. Most of the other cards here are, you know, pretty much the regulars. Start with Blex Vexing Pest for just a second. I've got a one of fun of those in the deck right now. I like this card, and you know, it's probably like going to be my silly pet card for a while. But the thing is that Search for Blex on the back side of this card, there are going to be a lot of times where you're not getting your life total pressured, and Search for Blex becomes really good, because, like, you know, it obviously, like, okay, losing 3 life for each card sounds pretty bad, but it's not like you're paying 15 life right out of the gates or whatever. It's not like you're you have so much flexibility over this card, and you can just get, like, assuming that you're not getting your life total pressured, then, and you're at, say, you know, 18 life or something on your 4th turn. If you resolve this and all of a sudden your hand is stacked and your opponent is under, like, a lot of material pressure all of a sudden, and I just invented that word. So you really have a lot of flexibility with the cards too. It's not just like drawing 3 for 9 life or drawing 2 for 6 life. It's kind of like casting Dig Through Time, except that if you want more cards, you can just have them. So it's been really good. If you can resolve this card and you don't have to worry about your life total that bad, then it's been pretty strong. And if you do have to worry about your life total, then Blex Vexing Pest has also been pretty serviceable. This card has been solid. It's not blowing anybody's doors off, and the backside is a little narrow. You don't get to use it that often, but when it happens, it's pretty good. And so I like the flexibility a lot. It's just a super flexible card. All right, so we've also got Gnarled Professor. Gnarled Professor is, I got a 3 of in the list right now. It's probably the best of the Learn mechanic cards from Strixhaven. It's a rare, so it's got pretty good rate here. 4 mana, 5/4. That's a lot of power and toughness. It's got Trample, which is actually pretty key for something this big. And yeah, it's like 4 mana, 5/4. You get to draw a card, so it's pretty nice. You know, assuming like you just get to draw a card. If it was just like 5 mana 4 or 4 mana 5/4 Trample, when it enters the battlefield, draw a card, that card would actually be pretty good. I feel like the lesson cards are, because you get to tutor and find the one you want, it's probably about the same, like, you know, value as drawing a card. The biggest problem I find with the whole lesson and learn mechanic is that you don't have access to, like, I really wish there was just like Dark Banishing or something, or Feed the Serpent or something like that. That was just like, you know, you have to pay a bunch of mana in or whatever, but like you get to draw a removal spell. That said, we've got Containment Breach, which is really nice. Just a disenchant. Pest Summoning is pretty good if you're like really kind of like on the back foot, trying to make some blockers. Also works pretty well with Vraska Golgari Queen. Confront the Past. Oh wait, the next one is Introduction to Prophecy. This is just kind of like if I am in the middle of, I don't know. This is kind of the go-to if I don't have a ton of mana. Confront the Past is pretty good because being able to put Confront the Past into your hand makes Gnarled Professor really good against Teferi in the blue-white control decks. Say this is in play, if you cast a Teferi, then all of a sudden you have to choose, are you going to +1 your Teferi and then have it be attacked by this 5-power creature, or are you going to minus on the Gnarled Professor, and then the Jund player gets to cast Confront the Past for X = 1 on your Teferi, that, you know, that card that they got for free, and then later they're going to draw this Gnarled Professor again and get access to, you know, Introduction Prophecy or whatever, you know, do the whole thing again. And then we've got one copy of Mascot Exhibition, which is just kind of like our the best like go big, put a bunch of cardboard on the table. Once you cast this and, you know, on an empty board or whatever in some kind of mid-range fight, then you're doing pretty well. The thing about the Gnarled Professor, though, is that you get whichever one you want at the time that you need it. And in the meantime, you've got this pretty good sized body that your opponent is going to have to handle, and so you're kind of getting them on both ends there. It's a good blocker, trades with a lot of stuff against Gruul, turns the corner against aggro decks pretty nicely. I feel like we're just a couple of lesson cards away from it being like really good, and so that is pretty much all for the main deck. The sideboard is like kind of re-engineered to be able to play these lesson cards. Normally we would have Gigantha in this deck, but we are playing, you know, because of Gnarled Professor and kind of less because of Murderous Rider. Murderous Rider is just like a utility spell. You could play whatever rule spell you want, but once we're away from Gigantha, I do like Murderous Rider. Gnarled Professor kind of fills that Gigantha role anyway. Like, Gigantha itself isn't that good of a card, but it's just like having access to some extra value later on in the game that's just kind of built into your deck. That is something that we're really like looking for in this deck, and so Gnarled Professor kind of does the same thing, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like a big part of your game plan or whatever, but it's nice to just have some access to extra value later on in the game when you have a bunch of excess mana. So, having said that, we've got 5 of our lesson cards in the sideboard, which means we only got 10 cards in our sideboard. Since that's the case, you want to try to maximize the amount of like different matchups that your cards can actually be used in. And so something like Go Blank is a card that I really like. It's a discard spell. If you're playing against like a control deck or a mid-range mirror or any kind of like combo deck, you get to add in a bunch more discard spells, but then also it doubles as a graveyard hate spell, which is really good. There's a lot of like combo decks, Arclight Phoenix, Faithless Looting kind of stuff going on, and Go Blank is great there, but it's also just like perfectly fine against, you know, a blue-white or blue-black control deck, or even in like a mid-range mirror or something like this, where you just want to have like raw card advantage spells. So Go Blank has been really good, and Flunk has been really good too. I really like this. I think it's kind of the best of the, you know, out of things like Heartless Act, Cast Down, Eliminate. Out of all those kind of like Doomblade effects, I feel like Flunk is the best one specifically for this deck. We do a pretty good job of taking cards out of our opponent's hand, so you're pretty likely to be able to hit whatever creature they have, even if it's something like really big. You know, plenty of times I've hit like a 7/7 Death Shadow, or like, you know, Questing Beasts and stuff like that. Most decks that you're bringing Flunk in against are looking to empty out their hand pretty quickly, so it does a pretty good job against, yeah, just like a lot of things. And like the fact that it's also just kind of like a combat trick can help out too. We've got like blockers, so if somebody attacks into you with some big creature, you can make it into a 2/2 and block with a Cheville or something like that. So so Flunk has been pretty good. And then to round out the sideboard, we got a couple of Grafdigger's Cages and a couple of Thragtusk. For just a bunch of like versatile stuff. So I played 5 matches with this deck and on the ladder, and let's get to the games. So this is the first match we got here. with Historic Jund Midrange. Opponent is on Lurrus of the Dream Den, so that's interesting to know already. Would love a Scavenging Ooze, but kind of can't turn away a hand with like 2 removal spells. Could be like Black-White Auras, could be some kind of Dreadhorde Arcanist deck. We've got the Abundant Harvest to try to like potentially like dig for Scavenging Ooze. We've got plenty of removal spells to hold on for a while. We've got the Professor. This is a matchup where, well, no spoilers, but this is a matchup where, like, you know, like I mentioned, the lesson and learn cards. A lesson that was just like Tormod's Crypt would have been, man, that would have been nice, but we didn't get it. Maybe, you know, it's funny. This isn't really important, but for this match or whatever. But I feel like that lesson and learn mechanic is something they could come back to at a future date, and that'd be really cool. Okay, so we got an Inquisition here, and yep, it looks like it's Dreadhorde Arcanist. And they're splashing blue. Lazav the Multifarious is a pretty sweet card, because they're probably going to be playing Kozilek. I guess I just go with Lazav here. So, I'm still pretty new at playing with Abundant Harvest. I chose to not play it on turn 1 there because it wasn't obvious if I wanted a land or not. Like, maybe if I had drawn a land there, then I would have been like, well, I need a spell instead of a land. So I kind of gave myself some time to I didn't spew it off right away and just like guess if I wanted land or spell. I gave myself I did it on the second turn, which was nice though because I was afforded that because of all the cheap cards that I had in my hand. Otherwise, like sometimes you just have to be like, you know, grab a land because I have expensive stuff in my hand, you know. So the opponent drew a Brainstorm, which is pretty good. You're gonna run into a lot of people playing Brainstorm on the ladder. It is a really good card. I don't know which is the best. It's either Brainstorm or Faithless Looting, I feel like, is the best card in the format. It's only been 2 days, but I'm pretty sure that the best card in the format is either Brainstorm or Faithless Looting, and then whichever one isn't the best is second best. But I do feel like Abundant Harvest is actually like right up there among the best cards in the format too. So the opponent goes ahead and gets rid of both Faithless Lootings, and they've got Kroxa in their graveyard. So here's the Professor, and we're going to go get this Introduction to Prophecy. Kind of with the intention of discarding it, to be fair. But what's nice about it is that, like, it's just, it puts a card into your hand. That just, like, kind of has a lot of value. An actual card in your hand that you have access to. If this was just a 5/4 draw a card, then that would have been fine too, you know, because we're just going to pitch it to this Kroxa. I feel like this is the right play because we want to have as many answers to a Kroxa as possible. Like, it's perfectly reasonable that they would have it in play again next turn. I don't know about 3 turns in a row, but these graveyard decks are able to really churn through their deck and put the cards in their graveyard quickly. I don't know, maybe something like a Stitcher Supplier or something would get it into play. But the big, the big plus side here of Gnarl Professor coming in handy, where like it's a 5/4, like they don't have a ton of time here. So now the question is, I guess we're deciding whether to play Valky here. I think we might as well cycle this Canyon Slough. And now we're doing great. I went to my opponent's upkeep there because, I mean, I should have, kind of sensed from them not having any gaining priority at all, that they didn't have anything. But there was a chance that they had something like Shock or whatever they could have used on it. So it would have made them cast it on their upkeep. Wasn't really necessary, but whatever. So with the Croaks gone, opponent's trying to make something happen here. Prismari Command is a pretty cool one. Doesn't look like it's going to get him back into this one, though. So, I was playing this match, and this is when I learned kind of the hard way that you gotta, when you play the lesson package, you gotta like scroll through all of your sideboard. Because I was looking at my sideboard, what to bring in, because it's all like one-ups, and it only shows so many of them on the screen. That I really made a great play here and decided to not bring in my Grafdigger's Cage. So we'll see how this goes. But we do get to try out Go Blank, and I think Flunk is reasonable. If I had Eliminate or whatever, I would bring that in here. Eliminate, of course, like Fatal Push or whatever, they hit stuff like Croaksa, but Flunk's gonna hit a lot of stuff. So there is a Flunk right there. Definitely a keep, although it doesn't have too much of our best stuff. Doesn't have Grafdigger's Cage. So our opponent mulliganed to 5 here. Kind of like pretty easy to come out of that when you're playing, all Faithless Looting and Croaksa and stuff. So definitely not a gimme by any means. Given the choice here between Bloodchief's Thirst and Flunk on this Dreadhorde Arcanist. Alright, I guess I went with Bloodchief's Thirst. I don't know why. I would or wouldn't do that, whatever. No, I think that like Flunk is probably better against Lurrus. So try to keep that in hand. Flunk is gonna, when the opponent's on a mulligan of 5, like Flunk is gonna hit whatever you want it to most of the time, so. Brainstorm into Shuffle, that's pretty good. That is what you're looking for. Into Faithless Looting. Opponent on 2 cards. We got nothing else going on. But you can see, like, if we had Go Blank, how amazing it would have been there. It would have gotten rid of, like, all their creatures in their graveyard, the Faithless Looting, the Claim Fame. Would have been, you know, and all the cards just in general, because they have Kroxa. You want to keep that count low if you can. So, yeah, Go Blank would have been great. Either way, just making people discard is also pretty good in this format, I find. I want to try to make something happen here. Pitching some lands. We don't have anything going on. So we could have saved the Inquisition there, and then use it on the Lurrus later. I don't know how much I like that. Like, could have been their card in hand could have been like Pyromancer. Yeah, it's hard to really know. So, and now with Bone Crusher Giant as a draw, well, it's like I don't want to fill up their graveyard like too much, right? What if they hit a Kroxa? It'd be pretty bad. But the other thing is that, like, if they hit Kroxa, they also need to hit a red source, like specifically a red source, not just any land. And we want to get a clock on, you know. So they get back Lurrus. Here is Professor, so great draw there. Kind of the point of, you know, playing a 22-man deck is that, like, here we are, like, at this point, when you're flooding out, it's, like, becomes much less likely that you're going to actually, like, continue to draw lands. So here's Lurrus. Their awkward mana made it so that they don't have a black source up, so they can't get back Stitcher Supplier. So we're going to get rid of this Lurrus, and not the Dreadhorde Arcanist. And the opponent concedes. So I think that deck, I mean, I don't know about the list or whatever, but you can tell, like, between Brainstorm, Faceless Looting, that was like an already pretty good deck, and there's a lot of new stuff that they've got access to all of a sudden. So don't be surprised if, like, if like more refined versions of that deck start seeing play. I saw a list that somebody posted that was basically this deck, but instead of Lurrus, they had access to Arclight Phoenix. Seems really powerful. So that is definitely like one of the, you know, we don't know what the final list is going to look like as far as Arcanist decks or whatever, even if it has Arcanist or not. So that is another. So this is another kind of thing that we're going to have to be adjusting our list for. Let's go to the next match. Here we go for our second match. Blood Chief Thirst, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Inscription of Ruin, good mana, looks awesome. Opponent has turn 1 Llanowar Elves. So I lead on Inquisition here, and you pretty much always want to lead on Inquisition. Imagine if my opponent had a hand of, like, say, Collected Company and I don't know, Bone Crusher Giant. Then you take the Bone Crusher Giant with the Inquisition, and then later that Collective Company is still stuck in their hand. Then you Thoughtseize that one. You don't want to, like, you know, if you have Thoughtseize, like, you don't want to strain that Thoughtseize in your hand. They play the card that you were thinking about taking with the Inquisition before you get a chance to take it out of their hand. So now we got 2 Thoughtseizes in our hand, which aren't great, but opponent's just down to a couple of Llanowar Elves. So Valky doesn't look very good right here. And it hurts, but we got to do this play. All right, so we get a little Goblin Piker action here. And our opponent has Collected Company in hand, so that's pretty bad for us. So, at least we have this copy of Stomp up. Before they attack, I'm going to hit this Gallia with the Stomp. Attacking with everything. Yeah, now hopefully we take 5 here, we trade the Spellbreaker with our Bone Crusher Giant, maybe draw some more removal, get out of this somehow. But I don't think that's happening. So, one thing we have going for us, though, is that this is a pretty solid matchup. I always try... I was talking on the stream the other day. I won't explain the whole thing, but basically, you're in a really good place if your deck in Historic has a good Gruul matchup. Gruul is a deck that is very consistent. It has like a straightforward game plan, just a bunch of good creatures, and it hits really hard. So if you can figure out a game plan to beat that deck, then you're going to be doing fine in the format at large. And I feel like Jund has usually got a pretty solid matchup here. Cheville, Scavenging Ooze, like our 2-drops are really good. And we just board into like more removal spells after sideboard. And Gnarled Professor comes up really big. It's kind of a little bit like... I was really into Asika's Chariot, and still am. I really like the card Asika's Chariot because of how good it is against Gruul. Like, the Chariot itself trades for Questing Beast, and then you get to... have leftover tokens. Well, Gnarled Professor does the same thing, kind of. You have this 5/4, it's really big, and blocks or trades with all of their best stuff, and then you have card left over too. So you don't have to have like the biggest finishing blowout to actually beat this deck. It's just you need something, and Gnarled Professor does a pretty good job in that spot. So now Bone Crusher Giant. I don't know. Sometimes you want to go after the elf, sometimes you don't. Went after the elf this time. Looks like it's kind of working out. Although who knows, maybe they have like Questing Beast in their hand or something, and now they can't play it. I actually think this might have been the wrong play. I maybe should have played the Gnarled Professor. I was thinking that like I could get down this Bone Crusher before they get a chance to get down this Bone Crusher, and then play a land tapped and save 2 life. It's possible that I should have played the Gnarl Professor, though, because of a Braid. If they had played in a Braid on their end step there, it would have been pretty bad for us. Didn't have it. Here's a Thrag Tusk. Could have attacked there. I don't know. I just kind of felt like one of the ways I was losing this game was Embercleave. I just didn't want to make myself vulnerable. Now Klothys is on the board, and all of a sudden you can't just like wait around anymore. Although we drew the Scavenging Ooze, but don't really want to wait around if you don't have to. So here is the Ooze. I'm gonna get it. I like to try to, you know, I could save up my mana and have Murderous Rider available, but I try to get a Scavenging Ooze out of Stomp range just as soon as I can. So now they've got a Spellbreaker. Definitely just going to keep the table clear, try to keep their devotion down. And I think we'll be fine. Yeah, and Scavenging Ooze counters Klothys pretty well. But it does cost you a green mana every upkeep, but it's worth it. If you're playing Klothys against Scavenging Ooze, you usually want to try to target non-creature cards, if possible. So that, like, I didn't get to gain a life and put a +1/+1 counter on my Ooze for activating it when I activated it in response to the Klothys. Not much else to do here. I haven't come up with a situation where I want to board in any of the lessons yet. And I don't think you would. I don't know. I also I've never boarded in Jegantha either. I guess in Modern sometimes people board in Lurrus when they have, like, I don't know, 4 mana cards they want to board in or whatever. The difference is that Lurrus is like a great card to draw and Jegantha kind of isn't. Not sure about which land I should have played there. I could have been right to do the Overgrown Tomb. Don't know. I wanted to get a green or a red source in play and then use the Cragcairn pathway for green, because with Scavenging Ooze in your deck, and like I want to be using it often when I have Scavenging Ooze. Like getting as much green mana into play as possible is the best. So knowing that I was going to play the pathway as green, I wanted to play the Blood Crypt first, but as it turns out, I don't know. I could have been very wrong about that. So now we got tons of land. Play another Harvest. We got a lot of removal. The opponent chose to not play that Scavenging Ooze, tried to play around our Stomp, and it kind of worked, but we were able to like do stuff with our mana instead, so it all kind of worked out. And so now they're going to put their Ooze up to a 4/4. Another copy of Flunk is great. And I want to get rid of this Ooze while I've got the chance. I don't know. Looking back, it honestly, it could have been right to leave that to play that land untapped. I don't know. I guess we do it this turn. We play a land untapped. So we have instant speed spell up here. Because we know they're going to end step this Collected Company. I don't know. Sometimes people will main phase their Collected Companies when they're playing Gruul. So it must kind of indicate that my opponent doesn't have a ton of haste creatures. I know everybody's got Spellbreakers, but probably like no Robber of the Rich, stuff like that. So there's a Clothis. And opponent's got a bunch of green mana, but the second flunk is going to be pretty nice. So the question is, do we play the Bone Crusher or do we play the Professor? I think my sequencing was a little wrong there. I should have played the Bone Crusher second main phase. Doesn't really matter too much. Chandra. Tick up and reveal a card they couldn't play, which is pretty good for us. Thragtusk is going to be really nice here. I found Thragtusk in these matches on the ladder to be pretty strong. So here's another copy of Harvest, and I think, let's see, you know, I've got a removal spell, I got a bunch of pressure, like what do I want to do? I think I want to find a land so that I can play Professor, and, like, I guess, you know, how do they get out of this situation? Hard to say. Maybe they draw, like, Collected Company on their end step, next turn or something. And then Embercleave? I don't know. But we're going to put a ton of power and toughness on the board with this Mascot Expedition. Exhibition. I think I had lethal there and didn't take it. So that was smart, but don't think this Burning Tree Emissary is going to get them back in the game. So yeah, the Gruul matchup still pretty reasonable. Just kind of the bread and butter of the format, and if you can do well against Gruul, then you're going to be doing fine, but they hit really hard, so to do well against them, you really got to be low to the ground, versatile removal. You got to be able to hit their big stuff, hit their cheap stuff, and keep your life total, keep your own life total in check, and then be able to turn the corner quick, because they have very live top decks with Collected Company, Questing Beast, stuff like that, Scavenging Ooze. So they put a lot of pressure on you, and if you can, if you can beat this deck, then you're going to be doing fine. So let's go to the next match. All right, so here's the third round. Hand pretty good. Missing like a removal spell. Would love like a Bloodchief's Thirst or a Bone Crusher or something like that. One is a pretty cool looking mountain. At this point, this Harvest, it's like, Still not sure what to do with it, and I don't know, maybe I should have spewed one off there to just get a new card and kind of to cycle it, but not sure what to do with it yet. And it was a good opportunity to get this Blood Crypt into play tapped. So now it's like, okay, Voltaic Brawler, well, I want to get on the board. Possible, though, really what I should have done is Abundant Harvest for non-land and hope to hit a Blood Chief's Thirst or an Inquisition or something like that. But I wanted to get on the board here. Now if I draw removal, I can cast it, turn Ooze into a 4/4 or a 3/3 or whatever. So Inquisition's a good draw, because it's a 1-mana play here. And the opponent's got a pretty interesting hand. 2 copies of Goblin Ruin Blaster, Collected Company Toski, and a Scavenging Ooze. Goblin Ruin Blaster. One of my arch nemesis. Don't see it too often though, which is nice for me. But when you see the Ruin Blaster, it's like, well, I'm going to need land. So we're going to go ahead and harvest for 1 land here. So here's the Ooze, we knew about it. I think the plan is next turn to Vraska on, and then minus on either the Elf or the Ooze. I don't really know which one, we'll see what happens. And then to block here, probably keep our life total high, cast as many of these expensive spells as we can while we still aren't, you know, getting hit by this Ruin Blaster. Now we got enough lands, we probably don't even have to worry about that Ruin Blaster that much, but we're still kind of short on green sources. If I had like another green source, then maybe I would have just been like, play an Ooze, make it a 4/4. But I don't think that's the thing to do. I think, if I remember right, I decided to hit this Scavenging Ooze. I was worried about them being able to, like, if you have 2 players and they both have Scavenging Ooze in play, the one who's got more green mana is going to be like way better off. Going to be able to like counter the ability of the other one, and eventually, like, you'll run out of creatures in the graveyards and be stuck with a Grizzly Bear. And the other thing is that, like, if my opponent does draw their 3rd land here, they don't get to actually play the Collected Company or Toski or Ruin Blaster and attack the Vraska with the Elf in the same turn. So we kind of were fine, you know, with that Elf taking out the Vraska like that. Now the Brawler is attacking in. So it's like, still kind of another tough call here. Okay, I guess looks like I didn't block it. So another Elf, so they're definitely going to be able to cast whatever they want next turn, either Company or Toski. Cheville is a nice one, though. So the plan is, I guess, to play the Cheville and Inscription the Brawler. Kind of like a little awkward because, you know, obviously the Inscription gets better later on. Because you have Cheville in play, of course. So the opponent makes this play. Decided to go with Collected Company instead of Toski. just attacks. Fair enough. So now we at least get this Cheville trigger. So we get to buffer our life total a little bit here, go up to 12, which is nice. Could have played Harvest instead, but this is a fine time to get down this green source. Get down this Blooming Marsh, and then we can have extra green mana available to use with our ooze. So the Spellbreaker is kind of funny. So I decided to take the opportunity to get that Scavenging Ooze out of Bone Crusher Giant range. The problem is, in case I wanted to make my make one of my oozes a 5/5 instead of making them both for 3/3, the option to turn one into a 4/4. So like this 4/4 Spellbreaker, it's like having a 5/5 in play would be really good against it, you know. So either way, we get to do this. This is better than I was thinking about this as I did it. It's better to do this double block with the 2/3/3s than it is to like turn one of my oozes into a 4/4 and block with that, because we get to have a 4/4 left over this way. Harvest into Cheville is about the worst. So now the question is, what do we block? They're going to be drawing 3 cards here, which is kind of a lot, but also like they have to get rid of a lot of creatures too, right? They're still like not going to be getting this Scavenging Ooze off the table, and we're going to be drawing a card, so still kind of anybody's game here. So I decided I was going to draw a card with Castle Locthwain first, give us some more information, plus we're going to have more cards in our hand later after this combat happens anyway because of the Cheville trigger. So we could have traded the Cheville off for the Spellbreaker there, but I chose not to, and to keep the Cheville in play because I knew that my mana was going to be going towards this Tibalt next turn. Sometimes I'll trade off a Cheville pretty easy if I know that like I've got another one in my hand that I'd like to cast, and I do here. But I just, you know, my mana is going to be tied up next turn, so I don't really I don't really care too much about it. So since this is happening, now we've got Tibalt. Tibalt's cool because it can exile. So we get to take the Toski. But the opponent's got Goldspan Dragon, which is another nice one. Between that and the Ruin Blaster and the Toski, the opponent's got quite a little brew going here. Having said that, the opponent also cast a Collected Company earlier that only hit 1 creature, so you know these Goldspan Dragons and Toskis and stuff definitely come with a cost. But this dragon is doing some work. So the attack with the Spellbreaker is really interesting. I think they just want to get the Pelt Collector to be bigger or something. I don't know. They definitely like thought about it and decided to do this. it made me think they might have like a Braid or a Lightning Strike in their hand. So I decided to go ahead and put the Scavenging Ooze right up to a 7/7, so that there was no like time where the opponent could cast a Lightning Strike on me. So now we get to play Toski, which is pretty cool. And the Scavenging Ooze is looking big. So they make kind of another weird block here. Okay, just land, so nothing major. So we have the option to play this Cheville if we want to, just like as a blocker. Kind of feel like activating the Ooze 2 more times is a little bit more valuable. Opponent scoops. The Toski was going to make it so they couldn't attack with the Ruin Blaster. We were going to be just attacking in like every turn with Toski and drawing a bunch of cards at that point. Like once, you know, once they came on the back foot, it's going to be pretty hard for them when we had Toski. So, yeah, we do the usual there. Take out the Thoughtseizes, board in the Flunks and the Thragtusk, take out the Valkies. Valky's pretty poor in the matchup, even though it was really good there against that. Against the Toski, it turned out to be, at least. Can't really depend on, you know, being able to cast Tibalt. Hand looks good. Would love a removal spell that costs 1 or 2 mana, and then I think we're fine. Forest Go. Again, don't know what to do exactly with the Abundant Harvest. Feel like with more practice I'd have a little bit more confidence on what to do. Chose non-land because, like I said, if I could get a cheap removal spell, I'd be in really good shape here. Between the Ooze and the Murderous Rider, it's like if I, you know, my hand is pretty stacked. If I'm drawing lands and I'm able to cast everything, then that's good. But also if I'm drawing cheap stuff, then that's good too. So like all of my, everything I draw from here on out is going to be pretty useful, you know, except the second Thragtusk. Opponent did not have a third land, so we might just kind of be on easy mode here. We're taking some damage from these shock lands, though. That's one of the things about this list. I play more shock lands than I did in the past, but I think Abundant Harvest kind of makes that necessary. But anyway, yeah, opponent didn't have really much else going on. However, with our hand the way it was, I liked how that game was going anyway. You know, having drawn both Thragtusks like that. Yeah, okay, so let's go to the next match. Alright. We got 2-drop, 3-drop, a couple of Neural Professors. Not really going to throw that back. Would love it, like, pretty much any 1-mana spell would also be really good for us, but, you know, what can you do other than, you know, top deck one? So, also because I had good plays lined up for turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, and potentially turn 5, it's like pretty happy with just nuking that elf right there. And so we find that we're not up against exactly what we thought it was. We're up against Stone Rain deck. Good old green-red Ponza. Good thing they put Stone Rain into the Mystic Archives. That's fun. That's really good. It's annoying that Stone Rain is going to be like if Stone Rain sees a bunch of play, what's going to be annoying is that like it's going to be good against decks like us, but it doesn't hit the stupid Lotus Field, so it doesn't actually like stop Degeneracy. It's just really good at punishing people who don't draw a lot of lands. So I don't know if I should have taken the Sawtooth or the Primal Command, but I know I really wish I had drawn a red source there. So opponent gets to mutate. Gigantic 6/6 flyer. Death Touch is nice. I get to attack in. Certainly don't really feel like giving them Ruin Blaster, although one way to play against Goblin Ruin Blaster is to just not have any lands in play. Makes it much worse. So now the opponent is attacking, which I don't love. And at this point, the food token makes it pretty much academic. They go up to 7, so they're out of range from us. We don't have any like copies of Shock in our hand or anything like that. Okay, so Stone Rain, really a real fun one that they put in the Mystical Archives. Really excited about that. So what do you do here? I think I just want to bring in Go Blank, maybe discard some of their cards, and I don't even remember what I boarded out, but like, yeah, I just want to get rid of like expensive stuff, clearly. Couple Inquisitions, get rid of some Stone Rain, it's going to be fine, right? Inquisition you, oops, all non-Inquisitionables. This is, of course, the reason why we only play 2 Inquisitions, because you don't run into this problem. If one of these had been a Thoughtseize, we would have been in quite a bit better shape. Having said that, I'm gonna go right ahead and spoil it for you guys. We just get the floor wiped with us here. These green-red kind of Ponza decks have always been a problem. I don't know if they're a problem for the deck, but they sure are a problem for me. So I went with Inquisition instead of Go Blank. I don't know why. In general, you want to do Go Blank last because you get to exile the cards that they discarded first, but so now maybe I can harvest into a black land, which would be great. Got a lot of them in there. That's not one. And here's an instance where Maelstrom Pulse would have been way better. You know, that's kind of the slot that Murderous Rider occupies is Maelstrom Pulse. Pulse is better against certain things, and Rider is better against certain things. It's tough. You just gotta make a decision on which one you want to play. I don't know. I liked Rider so far. I might go back to Maelstrom Pulse at some point. Glorybringer's a good draw. Can't block. So there's that land we were looking for. But the problem is that it's going to take me a second to figure it out. But Blood Crypt would put us down to 6. We Blood Chief Stirs the Gargaroth. That puts us down. Yeah, so that puts us down to 6. Then the Glorybringer just exerts on the Bone Crusher, kills us. So we are Dobzeroni. I don't know if this list becomes something that sees more play. Then I don't know. We have to revisit a lot, but yeah. Let's just forget about that one. Let's just forget that ever happened. All right, here we go. This is the 5th round we played. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like me getting like Stone Rain into Oblivion doesn't actually seem like is that super compelling of a game to put on the video. But just like in the interest of like, I don't know, journalistic integrity, you don't want to be like, oh, I played 5 matches, put the 4 good ones on the video, and then one where I lost. You know, it's bad. So, Swamp Go, no Thoughtseize, no Fatal Push, Gifted Aetherborn. Interesting stuff. So at this point it's like, what is the plan? And it looks like I want to just like play Blex, because I don't want to do nothing this turn. But the backside of Blex is starting to look pretty good. We got a lot of lands. Gonna need something to do with them all. And we're at 20, so still we've got a good defense here against this Gifted Aetherborn. So maybe Search for Blex is going to be good here. And now it's like, yeah, really glad we did that, because we need to try to keep up with that card advantage of that Phyrexian Arena. So we hit Vraska, which is great against Phyrexian Arena. Life total is like not in danger. Kind of can take as many of these as we want. Could go for the Locked Flame, but I already got one. Got plenty of lands already, so. And then the other thing is that like you want to get some pressure on them when they have Arena in play. So I mean, put that you know, losing 1 life, make that cost actually worth something. So I attacked, and they ended up blocking, which is also good because our plan here is to Vraska the Arena. But the other thing is, I like this Vraska is also going to be perfectly good against the what's she called? Ayara. So maybe they have a removal spell. They haven't shown a removal spell that they've had for Chevelle. Like any, like, you know, Murderous Rider or whatever would be great. And so now it's like, well, I've got this Vraska. Let's see what we got going on. I'd love to keep this Vraska alive. Even though I'd really also like to get this Chevelle trigger. We're definitely trying to like get in for the long haul here. We've got a lot of lands and they're stuck on 3. So we're going to have to try and get some value out of our cards here. But I wanted to make sure I could keep this Vraska alive. So what we decided to do is Wait till my opponent attacks and then cast Murderous Rider. Cast Swift End. It's going to make it so I don't get the back half of the Rider, and it makes it so they get to activate their First of Locthwain here. Ayara, First of Locthwain. But also, like, it made it so they wouldn't be able to attack Vraska with the Ayara if they had a removal spell for Cheville. Alright, so now it's like, use that Vraska over there, get our counter, everything's looking great. They got a Timuret and a Gifted Aetherborn. Got a couple of creatures over there we'd like to get rid of. But also, like, I'd love to get value out of them with Cheville. Let's see what's going on with another harvest here. Ooze is nice. Ooze is real nice. Keep our life total high. Similarly to Bonecrusher Giant decks, I like to, if possible, get Scavenging Ooze a counter so that I don't get hit by Heartless Act. So here's another Ayara. Pretty interested in getting rid of that Gifted Aetherborn, honestly. Maybe trade? Sure, get rid of that ooze. Going top rope with Inscription here, which is awesome. That's what, you know, Inscription is just so good in these matchups that go long like this, where it's like you both have small creatures and you've got creatures in your graveyard, but like all of this stuff matters. Creatures on the board, creatures coming back, cards in your opponent's hand, all of it matters. So it's like really pretty nice. So we get to see Old Griff make a real nice play here, and by that I mean completely overthink this. So I want to get that Phyrexian Arena off the table, right? So, oh yeah, what you want to do is get your Containment Breach, right? Or Smart Griffin says, oh, get Confront the Past, get your Vraska back from your graveyard. Oh no, it's Timuret, Chosen from Death. Uh-oh. Now what? Well, so clearly I can't use Confront the Past. So let's kill the Timuret. Yeah, and then they're going to go ahead and exile the Vraska. So this is top level stuff. We get a token out of it, or a card out of it. They also got rid of the Scavenging Ooze, which is pretty smart of them. Okay. Well, at least we've got Valky. So if they do anything too bad here, Grey Merchant. This is how we would lose this, right? If they just run draw a bunch of running Grey Merchants. So I decided I want to get rid of that. Get that off the table, because it's like, how do you lose this game? It's like from running Grey Merchants. And so it becomes like clear that you need to like get as much devotion off the table as possible, right? Otherwise we'd be down to 7 right now. So let's see what they got. Now I'm pretty interested in just casting my own Gray Merchant. Nothing to get back with the inscription. Ooze is going to gain us some life, so that's nice. I feel like I actually, I don't know, could have played that differently. Like, maybe bring Ooze up to a 3/3, but then just keep some mana up to play around something like Agadeem's Awakening or whatever. So we got another Gray Merchant. So now we are really becoming the Mono Black Devotion deck over here. Could have even played this, just cast this Murderous Rider, but we're gonna make him. We're gonna drain him out pretty good there. So, in light of that excellently played game, going to the sideboard. Go Blank comes in. Just any matchup where it's just like the card quantity matters, going to be good. Plus, you never know what they've got. There's, you know, Scrap Heap Scrounger, possibly, like Skyclave Shade, Gutter Bones, you know, stuff like that. All that stuff is good to exile. Yeah, you know, a deck like that could have pretty much anything. The modern theory is that like in a really like a pure mid-range matchup, you want to take out your discard spells, your point discard spells, because later on in the game, when you're both trying to top deck, the opponent doesn't have a hand, then your card doesn't do anything. They draw their card and they cast it. You draw your card, you do nothing, and then you're in trouble. That said, I left a couple of Thoughtseizes in because I'm worried about, like Phyrexian Arena, of course, is really, really important to get rid of. Deck like this could also have Phyrexian Obliterator. Seems like we didn't see any copies of Faceless Haven, which seems. Oh yeah, obviously no Faceless Haven because it's regular swamps instead of snow-covered swamps. So that seems to indicate, yeah, no Faceless Haven, which could mean Phyrexian Obliterator. Or maybe Dreadshade. Man, I love Dreadshade. I wish more people played Dreadshade. Every time I play Dreadshade, I love it, so... So we've got Nayara here. Yeah, gonna be hoping to draw some green sources. That's that's what I can say about this game. These scavengers, like, they look pretty good. I don't know. I've tried the scavenger thing, and it just kind of turns out to not be as good as I'd hoped. I was hoping for like 3-mana Baneslayer Angel, and it's just kind of not quite as good. I think it's a fine card, especially in a deck where you want a lot of black pips for your Gray Merchant and stuff. And it's also like is good in a deck where kind of in the same way that like Desecration Demon was good back in the day, was that like it doesn't actually need to be like you've got your cards that are good at gaining card advantage, like what did you have back in the day? Underworld Connections and stuff. And then you had your creatures that were good at like playing defense. They didn't have to be that good at playing offense as long as they could get the job done eventually and play defense when they needed to. So Scavenger does a good job at that. So it's probably pretty good in my opponent's deck. Every time I've played it in a deck like mine, though, it's like just kind of never works out. So now we're in a situation where like this is what you want Nighthawk Scavenger to do, is to like race, flying and lifelink, and usually pretty high power. That said, sometimes you can actually just put enough stuff on the table to race it. Like you couldn't do that with, you know, Lyra or Baneslayer Angel or stuff like that. So of course those are like more expensive cards or whatever. But that's kind of the thing that you're hoping to get out of the Nighthawk Scavenger. So now we get to make our own Scavenger, which is nice. It's going to gain us some life. So like I said, we're in a pretty good racing situation here. Ooze is going to gain us some life. So now we kind of hope that we don't run into any Gray Merchants. And here is an interesting thing where my opponent plays Leyline of the Void against us. So it's probably like the worst thing they could draw. It's kind of what's nice about this deck is that, like, you know, truth be told, like, I don't think if you run against this Jund Midrange deck on the ladder, I feel like I would advise not bringing in Leyline of the Void or Grafdigger's Cage or anything like that. But you can see why people do it. You know, we were doing a lot of like reanimation stuff there. The Planeswalker rebuy card was also like a factor. So yeah, like you can see why they would want that in play. But as it turns out, like it's like not that good because we're only like kind of like dipping our toe into the graveyard synergy shenanigans. And so we don't get colded by Leyline of the Void, but we still get like a little bit of the benefit of some of these black and green cards that utilize the graveyard here. So now they did draw a Gray Merchant, but weren't really in an attacking kind of situation. So we get to attack with an Ooze. They decide they want to trade, which is kind of nice for us. It's going to open up our ability to attack with our Nighthawk Scavenger. So let's play Professor. I want for an Introduction to Prophecy. I'm not 100% sure if that's right. And a second Leyline of the Void, which is pretty bad. Not what our opponent was looking for, but another Gray Merchant would make it really would be on for like 8. So now we get to attack and Bone Crusher for lethal. Pretty cool, like, you know, this is the kind of matchup that I like playing. It's just really fun. I hope that more, like, I don't know, my opponent I don't think was playing really any anything any new cards or anything. Not a lot of like Mystic Archive stuff. They might have had like Inquisition of Kozilek or Sign in Blood or something maybe that we didn't see. But I like playing this kind of matchup. I think it's really fun. So I feel like I always like try to gear my deck to beat a mirror match, even if mirror matches don't really exist. I have a lot of fun playing this kind of matchup. So yeah, that was 5 matches with this Strixhaven Jund deck. Let's wrap it up. All right, so to wrap up here, I played 5 matches on the ladder. I wouldn't call it like a real good cross-section of the ladder. We had like 1 Brainstorm Graveyard deck, 2 Gruul decks, 1 Ramp Stone Rain kind of nonsense, and 1, what was it, mono black, like a mono black mid-range thing. And like, I don't know. The thing is, there's no... Right now, it's, like I said, it's April 17th, so Strixhaven has been out for 2 days. There is no really good, like, cross-section of the format. Everybody's still... It is like the Wild West out here. Everybody's trying new things and figuring out, like, okay, we have this huge influx of these, like, new cards that are super powerful, and we're all trying to figure out where to put them and what to do. And so nobody's really doing everything is like very, you run into a lot of untuned decks, and you run into a lot of like just like stuff you've never seen before, you know. And eventually all of those different macro strategies are going to kind of congeal, and there's going to be like, okay, this is how you build the Time Warp deck, and this is how you build the Ultimatum deck, and this is how you build the Arclight Phoenix deck. But as for now, it's just like a whole bunch of like nebulous just kind of ideas out there, and so it's hard to know exactly what's going on. And you know, as of right now, I do like this a lot. It feels really good. I think Abundant Harvest is as good as advertised. It is what we are looking for to make this like a smoother, more consistent, maybe lower to the ground kind of deck. Plays out a little bit more like a modern deck now. As far as the exact configuration of like the removal and stuff, I'm still like a big fan of 4 Bloodchief's Thirst. I think that that's really like what this deck specifically is looking for instead of Fatal Push. And I am really into 4 Inscription at the moment too. Like the thing about, you know, these Brainstorm decks and Faithless Looting decks is that like, yeah, Brainstorm is like extremely powerful. It makes it so Thoughtseize and Inquisition get worse because there's the trick where you get to Brainstorm and put your good stuff back in response to a Thoughtseize or Inquisition, right? But there's also the thing that just like Brainstorm is really good at finding you the pieces you need, so it's harder for you to just knock out like, okay, my opponent's best card, like, say they're a Sultai Ultimatum deck, and it's like, okay, just going to knock out that Sultai Ultimatum and hopefully win the game. But if they have Brainstorm in their deck, their ability to find that Brainstorm, that Ultimatum gets a lot better. So Brainstorm is, while it's worse, while Brainstorm is good against Thoughtseize and Inquisition, it's not good at getting them, like, actual card quantity. And so Inscription of Ruin, like, is the real card count stuff is how you go about attacking the Brainstorm decks if you want to try and get in as far as, like, you know, hand disruption. In Legacy, the other format where you can play Brainstorm, people play Hymn to Torok for that effect. So not to say that Thoughtseize is bad or Inquisition is bad, but yeah, having access to like mass discard spells is really solid. Flunk was great. Flunk, I don't think I ever have, not in those 5 matches, and like certainly, and I don't know if ever. I know it's early still, but have I had Flunk in hand and like been unable to kill the target that I wanted to kill? And Go Blank has been great. It's awesome against stuff, you know, like Search for Azcanta, or stuff like Pelucranos I hit the other day, stuff like that. So Pelucranos, or Go Blank has been good. Really thrilled with that. And so and then Blex has been solid. And I do think I still like the Professor package, like just the fact that you have like this big creature, I feel like what was nice about Asika's Chariot was that it was just like kind of a blunt object thing that could come down, play defense if you needed to, and then ended the game quickly and kind of provided you card advantage. And Gnarl Professor does the same thing. And I've been impressed with it. I don't know if it's like exactly what you want, If you're looking for a 4-drop card in a deck like this, it's hard to beat, stuff like Chandra, stuff like maybe more copies of Vraska, Asika's Chariot, Questing Beast. But Gnarl Professor has been holding it down. And also, I guess I should mention, there are some cards from Strixhaven that I'm not playing that I've tried out. I didn't love... Let's see. Mortality Spear wasn't the greatest. Culling Ritual, I think it's called, was like a little bit narrow. Although those cards are like... Culling Ritual would be a sideboard card, and in this list specifically, like the amount of total sideboard cards you have has kind of been reduced. So a sideboard card in this deck needs to be a lot more effective than in others. But and then there was Valentin and Lisette, who were just a little underwhelming. Valentin didn't really do much unless you had a lot of mana, and if you had a lot of mana, you were probably just playing Lisette, and so didn't love Valentin. And Sedgemoor Witch, I think, is a really strong card. I just didn't think that it was right in this deck. I feel like you could build a deck that it would be really good in, but I don't think it's this one. That's where I'm at with this. I'll be updating it. This whole format has like a long time to flesh itself out. I think it might honestly be like months before we can really be like, okay, well, here is the format, and these are the best 5 decks or whatever, the things that you're going to see the most of, and here's your sideboard guide and how to play against it. I'm not going to be doing any of that for a while, because it's going to be like, it's still going to be kind of crazy out there for a little bit. So but in the meantime, this is the stuff from Strixhaven that I've been most impressed with. There's other stuff out there that I think is also got potential. And if you have something that you think I should try out, give me a in this kind of deck, then maybe shout it out in the comments or whatever. Yeah, thank you for watching. Check out jundlife.blogspot.com for like more updates on this deck as I go along. And I'll see you next time.